The war fleet hung in space like a constellation of death. 17 battle cruisers, each the size of a small moon, their hulls bristling with weapons that could turn planets into dust. They had conquered 43 star systems in the past decade. Their military doctrine was simple and effective: overwhelming force, maximum intimidation, total annihilation of resistance. Commander stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the holographic display of the human colony below. New Providence. Population, 200,000. Military presence, minimal. It would fall within hours, just like all the others. "Prepare the plasma bombardment," commanded, his 3 eyes fixed on the green and blue planet spinning peacefully below. "Standard protocol. Destroy all military installations first, then offer surrender terms." The weapons officer began the targeting sequence. Throughout the fleet, energy signatures spiked as massive weapons systems charged. They had perfected the art of planetary conquest. They had done this hundreds of times. Then something impossible happened. The sensors detected nothing. No warning, no energy spike, no thermal signature, just a microscopic impact on the hull of Battlecruiser 7 deep in the formation's center. The kind of impact that would barely scratch the paint on such a massive vessel. Except Battlecruiser 7 exploded. Not slowly, not with warning klaxons and evacuation procedures. One moment it was there, a 3-kilometer-long monument to military superiority. The next moment, it was an expanding cloud of superheated gas and debris, the explosion so violent it caught 2 neighboring ships in the blast radius. Mandibles clicked in confusion. "Report what just happened." The sensor operator's hands flew across his console, all 4 of them working simultaneously. "Unknown, Commander, I detected no missile launch, no energy weapon discharge, no torpedo, nothing. The explosion originated from inside the ship's reactor core." "That's impossible. Those cores have 17 redundant safety systems. Check for sabotage, internal attack." "Already checking. All internal sensors showed normal until 0.3 seconds before detonation. Then, nothing. It's like something just appeared inside the reactor and..." Another impact. Battlecruiser 11 on the formation's far edge. Same result. One moment intact, the next moment a funeral pyre bright enough to be seen from the planet's surface. His tactical mind raced. 2 ships destroyed in under a minute, no visible attacker. This wasn't random mechanical failure. This was an attack, but from what? Where? Full sensor sweep, maximum resolution, find me whatever is attacking us. The entire fleet's sensor arrays activated, flooding the space around them with every wavelength of radiation known to science. Electromagnetic, gravitational, quantum, subspace. If anything was out there, they would find it. The sensors found nothing. Battlecruiser 3 exploded. Then 5. Then 14. Each explosion identical, each with 0 warning. Each taking 4,000 warriors into oblivion in the blink of an eye. "Evasive maneuvers," roared. "Full dispersion, maximum separation between ships." The remaining battlecruisers fired their thrusters, breaking formation, each trying to put as much space as possible between themselves and their sister ships. In the chaos, their perfect military formation dissolved into scattered panic. Battlecruiser 9 exploded anyway. Then 12. Whatever was hunting them didn't care about their evasive maneuvers. It killed with the patience of death itself, selecting targets with methodical precision. Not the flagship, not yet. It was working through the fleet systematically, saving the command vessel for last. Realized with cold certainty that he was going to die. They all were. But he needed to know what was killing them, needed to send a warning to the Empire. This wasn't the helpless human colony they'd expected. This was something else entirely. "Launch all fighter craft. Spread them in a sphere formation around the fleet. Visual confirmation priority. If sensors can't detect it, maybe eyes can." 300 fighters poured from the remaining battlecruisers, spreading out in all directions. Each pilot was a veteran, trained to spot threats in the chaos of space combat. They flew in overlapping patterns, ensuring every cubic kilometer of space around the fleet was under observation. Battlecruiser 6 exploded. One of the fighter pilots, a young warrior named, happened to be looking in exactly the right direction at exactly the right moment. His eyes, evolved for hunting prey across vast distances caught something. A flicker, a distortion, like looking at stars through heated air. Contact, he transmitted. Bearing 273 Mark 14, I see. Something, it's small, moving fast. Visual only, sensors still showing nothing. 50 fighters converged on the location. Their weapons hot, ready to fire. They could see it now too. A shape, not invisible but close to it. The way it moved made hunting instincts scream. This thing was a predator, and they were prey. The object didn't run, didn't evade. It simply adjusted course slightly and accelerated toward the nearest fighter. The pilot fired everything he had. Plasma bolts, missiles, rail gun rounds, enough firepower to destroy a corvette. The object weaved through the barrage like water flowing around stones. Effortless, perfect. It reached the fighter and passed through its canopy. 0.3 seconds later, the fighter's reactor detonated. The other fighters opened fire, filling space with deadly energy. The object moved through it all untouched, selecting another target. Another fighter died, then another. Realized something that made his blood freeze. The object wasn't using advanced technology to dodge. It was using skill, prediction, reading their firing patterns and moving accordingly. It was outflying them, all of them. Break off, transmitted. We can't hit it, we're just wasting our... The object changed course, heading directly for him. Was the best pilot in his squadron. He had 93 confirmed kills. He had flown through asteroid fields at combat speed. He had survived engagements that killed warriors twice his age. He died in 4 seconds. The object went through his cockpit, through his body, through his reactor core, and out the other side before his brain could process what was happening. He felt a moment of intense cold, then nothing. On the flagship, watched his fighter screen dissolve. Whatever was attacking them could kill fighters as easily as battle cruisers. Size didn't matter. Numbers didn't matter. Get me the council, priority override. I don't care what time it is on the... While he waited for the connection, 3 more battle cruisers died. The fleet that had arrived with 17 ships now had 7, and that number was dropping fast. A hologram materialized on the bridge. Council Overseer, his age-whitened carapace marking him as one of the eldest alive. He looked annoyed at being woken. This had better be. We're under attack, interrupted. Protocol be damned. New Providence system, unknown weapon, unknown attacker. We've lost 10 battlecruisers in under 15 minutes. I need you to log this transmission. The humans have a weapon we've never encountered before, something that can penetrate our shields, our armor, our point defense, something our sensors cannot detect. Annoyance evaporated. What kind of weapon? I don't know, it's small, maybe the size of a fighter, maybe smaller. It appears to pass through solid matter and detonate reactor cores from the inside. Visual tracking only. Every other sensor type shows nothing. That's impossible. Tell that to my dead warriors. If I don't survive this, you need to warn the Empire. Do not attack human colonies. Do not engage human ships. Not until we understand what they've developed. This isn't a weapon. This is a massacre. Battlecruiser 2 exploded. 6 ships left. Then 4, 5 left. Then 8, 4 left. Watch the display nodding the pattern. The attacker was spiraling inward, working its way to the flagship, methodical, patient, professional. Commander, his weapons officer said quietly, "What are your orders?" Looked at his crew, young warriors, most of them. They had families back home. They had believed in the Empire and its strength and its invincibility. Now they were learning the universe's hardest lesson. There was always something bigger, something meaner, something better. Abandoned ship, all hands to escape pods. Maybe this thing only targets military vessels. Maybe it'll let you live. Commander, we can't just... That's an order. Everyone off this ship now. The crew hesitated only a moment, then rushed to the evacuation stations. Stayed on the bridge, watching the last 3 battlecruisers die. 15, 13, 10. Then there was only the flagship, alone in the void, surrounded by debris that had been the most powerful fleet in this sector. The evacuation alarm sounded throughout the ship. Thousands of warriors flooded into escape pods, launching themselves away from the dying vessel. Could have gone with them, should have, but he needed to see, needed to understand. He activated every camera on the ship's hull, dozens of angles covering every approach vector. If this thing was going to kill him, he was going to see it coming. There, a shimmer near the port bow, moving toward the ship, slow now, confident, like a predator that knows its prey has nowhere left to run. Zoomed in maximum magnification. The shimmer resolved into a shape, small, humanoid, wearing some kind of suit that bent light around it. In its hands, a weapon, simple, primitive-looking, some kind of projectile launcher. A human. One human. One human had destroyed 17 battle cruisers and 300 fighters. Started laughing, couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. The Empire, conquerors of 43 systems, brought low by a single human with a gun. The human raised its weapon, aimed at the flagship's hull, directly at the bridge, directly at. For just a moment their eyes met through cameras and display screens. The human's face was calm, professional, just doing a job, nothing personal. Whispered into the communication channel, ensuring the council recording would capture his final words. They don't hunt like us, they don't fight like us, they are patient, they are precise. They are death itself wearing skin. Do not fight the humans. You cannot win against something you cannot see, cannot track, cannot understand. Tell the Empire, run. The human pulled the trigger. The projectile was nothing special. Simple kinetic round. Moving fast, but nothing a shield system couldn't stop. Except it passed through the shield like it wasn't there. Passed through the armor like paper. Passed through 17 bulkheads, down 14 corridors, through the primary reactor containment field, and into the exotic matter core. The flagship began its death throes. Had time for one final thought. Humans had been hunting on their planet for millions of years. Persistence hunting. Tracking prey for days until it dropped from exhaustion. Stalking prey in absolute silence. Killing from distances the prey never saw coming. They had taken those instincts to the stars. The flagship exploded, adding one more bloom of light to the debris field that had been the war fleet. Below, on New Providence, 200,000 colonists went about their day, mostly unaware that they'd been scheduled for annihilation. A few astronomers noticed the bright flashes in orbit, but assumed it was a meteor shower or some kind of stellar phenomenon. In the governor's office, an encrypted message arrived from Fleet Command. Just 2 words, threat eliminated. Governor Martinez read the message and allowed herself a small smile. The thought they were the apex predators of the galaxy. They thought their size and numbers and advanced weapons made them invincible. They'd never encountered a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of killing from the shadows. Humans didn't fight fair. Humans didn't give warning. Humans identified the target, planned the approach, took the shot, and disappeared before anyone knew they'd been there. The head brought a hammer to fight a scalpel. Martinez deleted the message and returned to her paperwork. There was a new school to approve funding for, infrastructure repairs needed on the North Continent, the usual administrative details of running a colony. Just another day on New Providence. Above, in the cold silence of space, the human operative retrieved her expended brass casings. Old habit from training. Police your brass. Leave no trace. The stealth suit had worked perfectly, as had the precision rifle and the specially designed rounds that phased through shields and armor before solidifying on impact with the reactor cores. She checked her ammunition counter, started with 50 rounds, used 17, acceptable efficiency. Her comm crackled. Hunter Actual to Sierra 7, status report. Sierra 7 to Hunter Actual, mission accomplished. 17 capital ships eliminated. 0 friendly casualties. 0 civilian casualties, returning to base. Copy that, Sierra 7. Well done. Intel suggests that we'll think twice before hitting another colony. Hope so. I'd rather not have to do this again. You know how it is. Someone has to show them there's a price for threatening human worlds. Yes, I know. She engaged her suit's propulsion system and angled away from the debris field, back toward the stealth ship waiting in the shadow of New Providence's moon. Behind her, the wreckage of the fleet tumbled through space, a monument to the galaxy's new understanding. Humans weren't the biggest, weren't the strongest, weren't the most technologically advanced. The council chamber fell silent as the final transmission from Commander played out. 17 council members watched the holographic recording, their mandibles clicking nervously as the flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The recording ended with static, then nothing. Overseer rose slowly from his seat, his ancient joints protesting. He had lived through 300 cycles, had seen the Empire expand from a single world to encompass 43 systems. He had witnessed the subjugation of 14 different species. He had never seen anything like this. "One human," he said quietly. "One human soldier destroyed an entire battle fleet." "We don't know it was just one," council member objected. "The visual data was inconclusive. It could have been a coordinated attack by multiple." "It was one." The voice came from the chamber's entrance. Everyone turned to see Fleet Admiral entering, his battle armor still from his last campaign. He moved to the center of the chamber, his presence commanding immediate attention. "I've analyzed the attack patterns, the timing, the methodology. This was a single operator working alone, and before anyone suggests otherwise, this wasn't luck. This was skill." Gestured for the Admiral to continue. "Look at the sequence," activated a tactical display, showing the positions of all 17 battle cruisers at the moment of attack. The attacker started with Ship 7 deep in the formation. Why? Because it created maximum confusion. We thought we were safe in the center. Then it worked outward in a spiral pattern, never hitting ships close enough together that we could triangulate its position from explosion debris trajectories. It killed our fighters when they got close enough to spot it, but otherwise ignored them. It was hunting capital ships specifically. "But how did it penetrate our shields?" Ra demanded. "Our shield technology is based on quantum field manipulation. Nothing physical should pass through." "Except it did," pulled up technical schematics. "I've had our scientists working around the clock. Best theory we have is that humans have developed ammunition that exists in a quantum superposition state, neither fully physical nor energy. It passes through shields because the shields don't recognize it as a threat until it's already through and." The council members looked at each other, their confidence shaken. They had always relied on their technological superiority. Now they were facing a species that had them in at least one critical area. "We need to respond," one of the younger council members said. "The Empire cannot appear weak if other species learn that humans destroyed one of our fleets." "They already know," interrupted. "The human government released full sensor logs 6 hours ago. Every spacefaring species in this sector has seen the footage. They're calling it the New Providence incident. Some are afraid. Others," he paused, his mandibles clicking in disgust, "others are celebrating. Celebrating our defeat. Celebrating the fact that someone finally stood up to us. We've made enemies, council members, many enemies. The humans just showed them that the Empire can bleed. Stepped forward. Then we need to demonstrate that this was an aberration, an ambush. We need to launch a proper military campaign against the humans. Show the galaxy that." "No." Every eye in the chamber turned too. The old overseer's voice carried absolute authority. "We will not attack the humans again. Not now, possibly not ever. Overseer, with respect, we cannot simply." "Listen to his final words again," replayed the transmission. His voice, calm despite certain death, filled the chamber. "They are death itself wearing skin. Do not fight the humans. You cannot win against something you cannot see, cannot track, cannot understand. Tell the Empire, run." Was panicking in the moment of. Was one of our finest commanders. He conquered 7 systems. He never lost a battle. And in his final moments, facing death, he told us to run. I believe him. His armor plates rattled in frustration. "Overseer, please, consider what you're saying. The Empire has never retreated from any species. If we back down now. If we attack now, we will lose more ships, more warriors. And for what? Pride." Moved to the chamber's viewing window, looking out at the below. "I have spent my entire life building this empire. I will not watch it destroyed because we were too arrogant to recognize a superior predator when we encountered one." "Superior?" Ra stood, outrage clear in her voice. "How can you call them superior? They're primitives. They only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They have 17 colony worlds while we have hundreds. Their technology is adequate for killing us," turned back to face the council. "That's all that matters. They don't need the biggest ships or the most advanced computers. They need to kill us. And they've proven they can do exactly that." Silence filled the chamber. Finally, another council member spoke. "What do you propose, Overseer?" "A formal peace treaty, recognition of human territorial claims, establishment of diplomatic relations, and most importantly, we study them, learn from them, understand how they think, how they fight, how they've survived on a death world that makes our look like a paradise." "You want us to make peace with them after they destroyed an entire fleet?" "I want us to survive," said quietly. "And I believe that means not fighting humanity, at least not until we understand them better." Shook his head. The younger warriors won't accept this. They'll see it as cowardice. They'll demand action. Then they'll die stupid deaths, like the 4,000 warriors who died at New Providence. His voice hardened. I am overseer of this council. I make the final decision. We will pursue peace with humanity. Any council member who disagrees is welcome to submit their resignation. No one moved. Good, I want you to assemble a diplomatic envoy, our best negotiators, our best, people who can speak with humans without insulting them or threatening them. Can you do that? The Admiral's mandibles clicked in displeasure, but he nodded. Yes, Overseer. Excellent, now I want to know everything about human military doctrine, everything about their history, everything about their evolution. I want to understand what we're dealing with. One of the council members activated a holographic display. We have some information already. Humans evolved on a world they call Earth. Gravity 1.2 times standard. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. Abundant water. Sounds pleasant until you look at the predator density. The hologram showed various Earth creatures. Great white sharks, crocodiles, lions, bears, venomous snakes, and spiders. Each one a killing machine evolved over millions of years. Humans evolved alongside these creatures, the council member continued. They weren't the strongest, they weren't the fastest, they weren't the most venomous, but they survived. Do you know how? Hunting said, they became hunters. Not just hunters, the most efficient hunters their planet had ever seen. They developed persistence hunting, chasing prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. They developed ambush tactics. They developed long-range weapons, spears, bows, eventually firearms. They learned to kill from distances their prey couldn't even perceive. The hologram shifted to show human history. Ancient hunters tracking game across vast grasslands. Medieval archers killing from hundreds of meters away. Modern snipers eliminating targets from distances measured in kilometers. They brought this to space, said grimly. That human at New Providence probably killed our ships from several hundred kilometers away. Our sensors couldn't even detect the projectiles until they were already through our shields. There's more, another council member added. Humans have this concept called asymmetric warfare. When facing a superior enemy, they don't fight head-on. They use guerrilla tactics, ambushes, assassination, sabotage. They're willing to fight dirty, as they say, because survival matters more than honor. Absorbed this information, feeling a cold certainty settling in his heart. They had made a terrible mistake. They had seen humans as primitives, easy prey, another species to conquer and exploit. They had never considered that humans might have spent their entire evolutionary history becoming something the galaxy had never encountered before. Patient killers. What about their military structure? Asked. The hologram shifted again, showing organizational charts. Fragmented. They don't have a single unified military. Each colony maintains its own defense force. The central human government provides coordination and support, but actual military units are surprisingly independent. That seems inefficient. Does it? Leaned forward, studying the display. Think about it. If we destroy one human fleet, we haven't crippled their military. We've barely scratched it. Every colony can defend itself. Every ship captain has significant autonomy. You can't behead their military because it doesn't have a head. It's a hydra. And their soldiers? Asked. Volunteers, all of them, no conscription. Humans who choose to become warriors undergo extensive training, years of it. They specialize in specific roles. The one who attacked New Providence was probably what they call a special operations soldier. Elite, highly trained, capable of operating independently for extended periods. How many of these special soldiers do they have? Unknown. Humans don't publish detailed military information. But based on their population and their historical military participation rates, we estimate anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 warriors with elite training. Felt his confidence sink further. 50,000 humans like the one who destroyed the New Providence fleet. Even if they only had 1,000, even if they only had 100, that was 100 entire fleets that could lose. Show me human space, he ordered. The hologram displayed the region of space humans had colonized. 17 worlds spread across multiple systems, defensive satellites around each one. Patrol routes clearly marked, nothing hidden, nothing secret. Except knew that was a lie. The humans were hiding something. They had to be. No species advertised their military capabilities so openly unless they had hidden assets they wanted to protect. "Where do they train these special soldiers?" he asked. The council member manipulating the display highlighted several locations. "These three worlds have known military academies. This station near Jupiter appears to be a naval training facility, but we don't know where they train their elite forces. It could be anywhere. Hidden bases, underground facilities, even ships that move constantly. And we didn't know any of this before we attacked New Providence." Guilty silence answered him. "We saw them as primitives," admitted. "Recent FTL achievement, small colonial footprint, limited industrial base. On paper, they looked like easy conquests. We didn't bother with deep intelligence gathering. We just assumed we would win." "Assumptions kill empires," said quietly. "Remember that, all of you. When you underestimate your enemy, you sign your own death warrant." He turned back to the window, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, human soldiers were training, learning, perfecting their craft, waiting for the next threat to emerge so they could eliminate it with surgical precision. The galaxy had a new apex predator. And the Empire had just learned they were no longer at the top of the food chain. "Draft the peace offer," ordered. "Generous terms, recognition of all human territorial claims, technology exchange, trade agreements, make it attractive. Make it obvious we're not interested in further conflict." "And if they reject it," someone asked. "Then we prepare for a very long, very bloody war, one we'll probably lose." His mandibles clicked softly. "But I don't think they'll reject it. Humans are pragmatic. They prefer negotiation to conflict when possible. They just want to be left alone to build their civilization in peace." "How do you know that?" "Because that's what I would want if I were them. The difference is they have the capability to enforce it. We just learned that the hard way." 3 days later, a diplomatic ship entered human space under a flag of truce. The response came within hours, an invitation to meet at a neutral station, with full diplomatic protocols and guarantees of safety. The humans had accepted, allowed himself a moment of relief. Perhaps the Empire would survive after all. But he never forgot's final warning. Never forgot the image of that single human soldier, calmly aiming at the flagship, pulling the trigger with the confidence of a hunter who never misses. The galaxy had changed. The neutral station floated in the void between human and space, a massive wheel of metal and composite materials built specifically for diplomacy. 20 different species maintained embassies here, making it the closest thing the galaxy had to neutral ground. Ambassador stood in the human delegation's preparation room, studying the intelligence reports one final time. They were coming to negotiate peace, but she knew better than to assume this would be straightforward. Species that built empires through conquest didn't give up easily. "They're scared," said Commander Hayes, the military standing beside her. He was reviewing tactical data on his tablet, probably going through the New Providence engagement for the 100th time. "Our people really rattled them." "One person," corrected. "Sierra 7 rattled them all by herself." "True, she's getting a medal for it, though knowing her, she'll probably skip the ceremony." Smiled slightly. She'd read Sierra 7's file. The woman was exceptional at her job, utterly professional, and absolutely hated attention. The perfect special operations soldier. "How many more like her do we have?" asked. Hayes glanced up from his tablet. "That's classified, Ambassador." "Of course it is, but they are going to ask. They'll want to know what kind of threat we represent." "Then we tell them the truth. Enough." Hayes set down his tablet. "Look, Ambassador, I know you're supposed to be diplomatic and find common ground and all that, but don't let them think we're weak. They respect strength. They need to understand that New Providence wasn't a fluke or a lucky shot. It was us showing restraint." Restraint. Sierra 7 could have killed every ship in that fleet in under 2 minutes if she'd wanted to. Instead, she took her time. Let them see what was happening. Let them panic. Let them send a message back to there. She was sending a message. "This is what one human can do. Imagine what all of us could do if you force our hand." Considered this. Military psychology wasn't her specialty, but she understood the principle. Sometimes the threat of force was more effective than force itself. "All right," she said. "I'll be diplomatic but firm. We want peace, but we won't be pushed around." "Perfect. That's exactly what they need to hear." A soft chime indicated the delegation had arrived. straightened her formal diplomatic attire and headed toward the conference room. Hayes followed, his hand never far from his sidearm. Protocol dictated that military could be armed during negotiations. Suspected Hayes would have brought a weapon anyway. The conference room was designed to accommodate multiple species. Chairs of various sizes and configurations, atmospheric controls for different environments, translation equipment built into the walls themselves. At one end of the long table sat the delegation. Had seen before, but only in recordings and still images. Meeting them in person was different. They were large, easily 2.5 meters tall even when seated. Their chitinous exoskeletons gleamed under the station's lights, colored in deep purples and blues. 3 eyes arranged in a triangular pattern dominated their faces, constantly moving independently to scan their surroundings. Their mandibles clicked softly as they conversed among themselves in their native language. The leader of their delegation rose as entered. Fluid movement, despite the heavy armor-like body. A being built for physical power, yet carrying themselves with surprising grace. "Ambassador," the said in accented but clear English. "I am Admiral, Military Commander, and Diplomatic Representative of the Empire. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Noted the choice of representative. Not a professional diplomat, a military officer. Interesting. They were either trying to show strength, or they thought a warrior would be more credible when discussing what happened at New Providence. Admiral acknowledged with a slight bow. "Welcome. Please, let's sit and discuss how our peoples can move forward peacefully." Everyone took their seats. The delegation consisted of 5 members, 2 junior officers, and what's intelligence briefing identified as a council representative. The humans had brought 5 as well: Hayes, a trade negotiator, and a legal expert. "Let me be direct," began, wasting no time. "The Empire formally apologizes for the attempted military action at New Providence. Our fleet commander acted without proper intelligence and made assumptions about human capabilities that proved incorrect. He assumed we'd be easy prey," Hayes said bluntly. His mandibles clicked in what might have been acknowledgement or frustration. "Yes, we underestimated your military capabilities. We will not make that mistake again." "Good," said, "because we'd rather not have to demonstrate those capabilities further. The loss of life at New Providence was regrettable. We take no pleasure in killing. And yet your soldier made no attempt to communicate before opening fire. No warning, no ultimatum." "Your fleet was preparing to bombard a civilian population," Hayes countered. "Our intelligence indicated you would offer surrender terms only after destroying all military installations. Installations located in and around civilian population centers. We weren't going to let you kill 200,000 people and then negotiate." Was silent for a moment, then surprisingly he nodded. "You are correct, that was our standard protocol. We have since revised it." Felt a small surge of satisfaction. They were learning. Good. "The Empire wishes to propose a formal peace treaty," continued, sliding a data pad across the table. "Recognition of all human territorial claims, establishment of trade relations, technology exchange, mutual defense pact against external threats." Picked up the pad and skimmed the document. It was generous, surprisingly so. She'd expected demands, conditions, face-saving measures. Instead, this read almost like a surrender document. "This is acceptable as a starting point," she said carefully. "But I have questions. First, why the Mutual Defense Pact? Are you expecting other threats?" The council representative spoke for the first time, her voice higher-pitched than s. "The galaxy is full of aggressive species, Ambassador. The Empire has survived by being the most aggressive. But your people have shown us that aggression alone is not enough. We believe an alliance between our peoples would benefit both. You have capabilities we lack. We have resources and industrial capacity you need. You want us as allies because you're afraid we'll be enemies," Hayes said. "We want you as allies because we are intelligent enough to recognize strength when we see it," replied. "And yes, because we would rather fight beside you than against you." Exchanged a glance with Hayes. He gave a slight nod. This was legitimate. "Let's talk specifics," said. "Trade, what do you propose?" The negotiation continued for hours. They offered access to their industrial base, their raw materials, their established shipping routes. In exchange, they wanted technology transfers. Not weapons, interestingly. They wanted agricultural technology, water purification systems, medical advances. The kinds of things that improved quality of life rather than military capability. You're trying to shift from a conquest economy to a sustainable one, observed during a break. His mandibles clicked in what she was learning to recognize as affirmation. Our current model is unsustainable. We conquer, extract resources, move on, but we're running out of systems to conquer. The easy targets are gone. The difficult ones, he gestured vaguely, require more military force than we can sustain. Your people have shown us there's a better way. We're not perfect, warned. We have our own problems, internal conflicts, resource disputes, political disagreements. But you solve them without destroying yourselves. That's wisdom we need to learn. Found herself genuinely liking. He was direct, pragmatic, and apparently committed to changing his entire civilization's direction. That took courage. There's one thing we need to discuss, Hayes said. Your military doctrine. If we're going to be allies, we need to know you're not going to attack other species unprovoked. We are revising our military doctrine as we speak, the council representative said. Defensive posture only, no more conquest, no more expansion through force. That's a big change. Your military won't like it. Many of them already don't, admitted. But they understand the alternative, extinction. Your people proved that a technologically superior force can be defeated by a tactically superior one. If we continue as we have been, eventually we'll encounter someone else like you. Maybe someone even more dangerous. We need to evolve or die. Noticed the and the delegation had been quiet throughout the discussions, just observing. Now the being leaned forward, speaking for the first time. Ambassador, may I ask a question about human psychology? Of course. Your soldier at New Providence, Sierra 7, I believe. How does she live with what she did? Killing 4,000 warriors. Does she experience guilt, trauma? Considered her response carefully. I haven't spoken with her personally, but based on psychological profiles of similar soldiers, she probably views it as a necessary action. She was protecting civilians, preventing genocide. That context matters to humans. But surely the scale of death must affect her. It might. Humans process trauma differently. Some soldiers struggle with what they've done, even when it was necessary. Others compartmentalize, separating the action from the emotion. We provide psychological support, counseling, ways to process and deal with the mental impact. They don't have this, they said quietly. Our warriors are expected to be strong, to not feel regret or doubt. Perhaps that's something else we need to learn from you. The meeting continued into the night cycle. They hammered out details, discussed implementation timelines, addressed concerns from both sides. By the end, they had the framework of a real treaty. Not just words on a document, but a genuine attempt to reshape the relationship between two species. As the delegation prepared to leave, approached privately. There's something I want you to know, Ambassador, off the record. All right. That human, Sierra 7, what she did was terrifying, but it was also honorable in its way. She could have targeted our escape pods, could have killed every warrior who abandoned ship. She didn't. She only killed those who could fight back. There's warrior's honor in that. Felt a wave of respect for the Admiral. He understood. I'll pass that along to her if I get the chance. Please do, and tell her. Tell her that we'll remember. We will remember that humans know how to kill, but choose not to when given the option. That matters. After the left sat alone in the conference room, reviewing the preliminary treaty. It was good work, real progress, but she couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Hayes came back in, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He passed one too. You okay? He asked. Just thinking, this went better than I expected, maybe too well. You don't trust them? I do actually, but I'm wondering about the galaxy at large. Word is spreading about New Providence. Other species are watching. Some will see it as a cautionary tale. Others will see it as a challenge. Hayes sipped his coffee. Let them. We didn't start this fight, but we damn sure finished it. Any species that wants to test us is welcome to try. That's exactly what worries me. We don't want to become what they were. The boogeyman of the galaxy, the ones everyone fears. Then we don't. We be what we've always been, defenders, protectors. We don't pick fights, but we end them when necessary. The galaxy will learn. Hoped he was right. She raised her coffee cup. To peace, then, and to the silent hunters who make it possible. Hayes clinked his cup against hers. To the hunters. Halfway across the galaxy, Sierra 7 was already preparing for her next mission. Because the thing about being a hunter was simple. There was always another threat, always another target. The Dominion had been watching humanity for 6 months. They watched as the fleet died at New Providence. They watched as the two species negotiated peace. They watched as trade routes opened and diplomatic relations normalized. They watched and they learned. They didn't rely on brute force or overwhelming numbers. They were strategic, patient. They used information as a weapon, infiltration as a tactic, and they always struck when their enemy was most vulnerable. High Coordinator studied the holographic displays in the Dominion's Intelligence Center, his crystalline eyes reflecting the blue light. They were in species, smaller than most spacefaring races, with sleek carapaces that could change color to match their surroundings. Natural mimics, natural spies. The humans interest you, his second-in-command, Al, observed. The humans concern me, corrected. They destroyed 17 battlecruisers with a single operative. That's not just advanced technology, that's tactical brilliance. They were overconfident, slow, easy targets. Perhaps, but I don't believe in underestimating potential threats. The humans have 17 colony worlds, limited military presence in most of them. They rely heavily on these special operations soldiers rather than massive standing armies. Al's antennae twitched. You're thinking of testing them. I'm thinking of understanding them. We've intercepted their communications, studied their military structure, but we don't really know how they think, how they respond to asymmetric threats. And you want to create such a threat. Turned from the display. The Dominion's strength has always been information and infiltration. We need to know if humans are vulnerable to our methods. If they are, they're manageable. If they're not, he paused, then we need to know that too. Which colony do you propose we test? New Horizons, third largest human population, important trade hub, but far from their core worlds, limited military presence, perfect target. What kind of test? Nothing overt, no fleet action. We infiltrate, we sabotage, we create chaos, we see how they respond. If their special operations soldiers are as dangerous as we fear, they'll show up. Then we observe, analyze, and extract before they can do any permanent damage. Al considered this, and if they respond more effectively than anticipated, then we abort the mission and reassess. I'm not interested in starting a war with humanity. I just want to know what we're dealing with. Knowledge is power, Al, always. 3 weeks later, an infiltration team arrived in the New Horizons system. They came in a civilian transport, forged credentials marking them as independent traders. The human customs officials barely glanced at their documentation before waving them through. Too easy, team leader thought as their ship docked at the main orbital station. Either humans were incredibly naive about security, or this was a trap. Given what he'd seen at New Providence, he suspected the latter. But orders were orders. His team consisted of 6 specialists. Infiltration experts, saboteurs, information warfare operatives. They split up immediately after docking, each heading to pre-assigned targets throughout the colony. Communications hub, power generation facility, water treatment plant, spaceport control. Nothing too dramatic, just enough disruption to test human response times and capabilities. Took the most important target himself, the Colonial Administration building. The humans kept their central servers there, containing everything from population records to military deployments. If he could access those servers, the Dominion would have a complete picture of human colonial infrastructure. The building's security was surprisingly light. A few guards at the entrance, basic electronic locks on sensitive areas, standard video surveillance. His color-shifting carapace rendered him effectively invisible to the cameras, and his technical skills made short work of the locks. Within 20 minutes, he was inside the server room. Too easy, definitely too easy. But the data was here and he was a professional. He connected his extraction device to the main server and began downloading. Personnel files, supply manifests, defense protocols, communication logs, all of it flowing into intelligence databases. Then his communicator vibrated. Once, the emergency signal. His hand moved to disconnect his device, but he hesitated. The download was only 60% complete. 5 more minutes and he'd have everything. The communicator vibrated again, twice, abort immediately. Something was wrong. pulled his device and headed for the exit, moving silently through the corridors. He could hear alarms now, distant but getting closer. His team had been compromised. But how? They'd been careful, professional. They'd done nothing to attract attention. He reached the building's emergency exit and slipped outside, his carapace shifting to match the dusky twilight colors. The street seemed normal, humans going about their business, unaware that anything was wrong. Then felt it, a prickling sensation along his antennae, the feeling of being watched. He turned slowly, scanning the rooftops, the windows, the crowd. Nothing, no obvious threats, but the feeling persisted. One of his team members emerged from a side street, moving too quickly. Panicked, not professional at all, saw what was about to happen and couldn't stop it. The team member collapsed mid-stride. No sound, no visible wound, just dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Rand. Behind him, he heard the distinctive sound of something impacting flesh. Another team member down, then another. The humans weren't announcing themselves, weren't calling for surrender. They were hunting, silent, efficient, deadly. Dodged into an alley, his tactical mind racing. He needed to reach the spaceport, get to his ship, get out of this system. The mission was blown, his team was compromised, and something told him that staying on this planet was a death sentence. He made it 3 blocks before the first shot found him. No warning, no sound, just sudden impact in his lower thorax, spinning him around and sending him crashing into a wall. His carapace had protected him from the worst of it, but the force of the impact had cracked 2 of his legs. Looked down at the wound, some kind of dart embedded in his shell, not lethal but coated with something. His vision was already starting to blur. Tranquilizer. They weren't killing him, they were capturing him. That scared him more than death would have. He tried to move, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. The tranquilizer was working fast, spreading through his system. He slumped against the wall, unable to run, unable to fight. A figure emerged from the shadows. Human, female, wearing civilian clothes but moving with military precision. She carried what looked like a modified pistol, the same weapon that had fired the tranquilizer dart. "Team of 6, she said calmly, speaking into a throat mic. "All targets acquired, beginning extraction." Tried to speak, to demand answers, but his mandibles wouldn't work properly. The woman crouched beside him, checking his vital signs with professional efficiency. "You'll be fine," she said almost kindly. "The tranquilizer won't kill you. We just need you unconscious for a bit while we have a conversation." Darkness took him. He woke in a white room, clean, sterile, medical facility of some kind. His legs were immobilized but not damaged. Someone had actually treated his injuries while he was unconscious. A human entered, male, older, wearing a formal military uniform with insignia didn't recognize. "Welcome back," the human said. "I'm Colonel, New Horizons Security Division. You and your team have been very busy." Said nothing, intelligence training. Give name, rank, nothing else. "Let me tell you what we know," continued, sitting in a chair across from. "You're Dominion, intelligence operatives. You entered our system 3 weeks ago on forged credentials. You've been conducting reconnaissance and preparing sabotage operations. Your team hit 5 targets simultaneously, which shows good coordination, professional work." "How did you know?" Couldn't help asking. Smiled, "Because we let you. Your ship was flagged the moment it entered our space. We've been tracking you and your team since you arrived. We wanted to see what you'd do, how you'd operate. Now we know." The customs officials knew exactly who you were. "We have facial recognition software linked to every intelligence database in human space. Your people have conducted operations against 17 different species over the last decade. You think we wouldn't recognize you?" Felt cold certainty settling over him. The entire mission had been a setup from the start. "My government will demand my release," he tried. "Your government doesn't officially acknowledge you exist. Deniable assets, that's your whole thing." Leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything about infiltration methods, your intelligence networks, your strategic goals. In exchange, we'll release you and your team, alive and unharmed. And if I refuse, then we release you anyway. But first, we make sure every intelligence agency in the galaxy knows that the legendary infiltrators were caught within 3 hours of beginning their operation on a human colony. We provide detailed reports on your techniques, your equipment, your biological vulnerabilities. We turn you from shadowy operators into an open book." Santeni drooped. That was worse than death. The Dominion's entire strategic advantage depended on being underestimated, on operating in shadows. If humans exposed their methods publicly, other species would adapt. The Dominion's primary weapon would become useless. Or, continued, you cooperate. You tell us what we want to know. We keep that information confidential. Your methods remain secret. Your organization remains effective. You just stop operating against human interests. You want us to become your allies. I want you to become neutral. I don't care what you do to other species as long as you leave us alone. Simple arrangement. Considered his options. He could refuse, but that would only hurt his own people. He could lie, but something told him these humans would know. They'd already demonstrated an unsettling level of competence. I need assurances, he finally said. Guarantee of safe release, no public exposure of my team or our methods. Done, you have my word. A human's word is worth something. Stood, among my people, yes. We take promises seriously. But if you need more concrete assurance, consider this. We could have killed you all within minutes of your operation starting. We didn't. That should tell you something about human intentions. It did, realized he was dealing with a species that understood restraint. That understood the value of leaving enemies alive when it served a purpose. They had learned this lesson the hard way at New Providence. They were learning it now. I'll cooperate, said, but I want to speak with my superiors first. They need to authorize this level of disclosure. Already arranged. There's a secure communication link waiting for you. High Coordinator appeared on the holographic display, his crystalline eyes unreadable. Explained the situation, trying to keep his report professional despite the embarrassment of total mission failure. You were right, concluded. We underestimated them. They knew we were coming. They let us proceed just to see what we'd do. Their security capabilities are far beyond what we anticipated. Was silent for a long moment. Then, cooperate fully, tell them what they want to know, and thank the humans for the lesson. It's worth more than any intelligence we might have gathered. The transmission ended. Over the next 3 days, provided detailed information about operations. Not everything, not the deepest secrets, but enough to satisfy human curiosity and demonstrate good faith. In return, shared some information about human security measures. It was sobering. Humans had anticipated the infiltration because they'd been studying methods for months. They had contingency plans for 17 different infiltration scenarios. They had developed countermeasures specifically designed to detect and neutralize operatives. You planned all this before we even thought about hitting new horizons, said amazed. We plan for everything, replied. That's what humans do. We imagine every possible threat and prepare responses. It's exhausting, honestly, but it keeps us alive. On the 4th day, and his team were released just as promised. Their equipment was returned, their ship was refueled, and they were escorted to the edge of human space with a simple message. Don't come back. The Dominion held an emergency council session upon their return, presented his findings to the assembled coordinators. The humans are unlike any species we've encountered, he concluded. They don't just react to threats, they anticipate them, plan for them. They think like predators, always considering what might be hunting them. It makes them incredibly difficult to infiltrate or surprise. Address the council. I propose we adopt the same strategy that did, open diplomatic relations, establish peaceful contact, make it clear we have no hostile intentions toward humanity. They humiliated us, one coordinator objected. Our entire team captured within hours. They humiliated us privately, corrected. They kept their word about not exposing our methods publicly. That shows restraint, wisdom. These are not mindless aggressors. They're rational actors who prefer diplomacy to conflict. The vote was unanimous. The Dominion would seek peace with humanity. And across the galaxy, other species were watching, learning, understanding that the new humans weren't just dangerous because of their weapons or their special operations soldiers. 5 years after the New Providence incident, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new order. The Empire had transformed from conquering warmongers into cautious traders. The Dominion focused their intelligence operations on species that weren't human. 17 other civilizations had signed non-aggression pacts with humanity, each one learning the same lesson. Humans were better as friends than enemies. But not everyone had learned. The collective emerged from deep space with a fleet that made the Armada look like a patrol group. 300 ships, each one a cathedral of destruction. They were an old species, ancient by galactic standards. They had been expanding slowly for consuming resources, absorbing other civilizations, growing like a cancer through the stars. They had heard about the humans, about New Providence, about the infiltration failure. They had reviewed all available intelligence and reached a conclusion that would have seemed reasonable to any pre-human civilization. Humans were dangerous, but they were small. 17 colonies against the collective's 600 worlds was no contest. Better to eliminate them now before they became a real threat. The fleet entered human space without warning. No declaration, no demands, just 300 warships heading directly for Earth humanities. Admiral James sat in the Fleet Command Center deep beneath the surface of Luna, watching the tactical display with growing concern. The fleet was moving in perfect formation, their ships spread across a three-dimensional sphere that would be almost impossible to breach. Classic envelopment tactics, designed to eliminate any possibility of escape or reinforcement. ETA to Earth orbit? He asked. 72 hours at current speed, his operations officer replied. They're not bothering with stealth or subterfuge, just coming straight at us. Because they think they've already won, muttered. He pulled up the force comparison on his screen. Humanity's entire defensive fleet around Earth consisted of 43 ships. Good ships, well-trained crews, but 43 against 300 was impossible odds by conventional warfare standards. Fortunately, humans didn't believe in conventional warfare. Get me the President and the Joint Chiefs, ordered, and activate Ghost Protocol. Around human space, in hidden facilities that officially didn't exist, silent alarms began to sound. Men and women who had been living normal lives received encoded messages on secure channels. They put down their tools, kissed their families, and reported to unmarked buildings where they picked up equipment they'd hoped never to use again. The hunters were being called to war. Sierra 7, whose real name was Sarah but who hadn't been called that in 5 years, received her activation notice while teaching a marksmanship class on New Providence. She finished the class, locked up the range, and drove to an unmarked facility on the edge of the colony. Inside, 37 other operators were already assembling, some she knew from previous operations. Others were strangers, though she recognized the look in their eyes. The same look she saw in her own mirror. The look of people who had learned to kill without hesitation and live with what that made them. A hologram materialized at the front of the room. Admiral, his face tired but determined. 300 warships are heading for Earth, he began without preamble. Their intention is to eliminate humanity as a potential future threat. They believe overwhelming force will win the day. They believe we can't possibly stop them. Someone in the back of the room laughed, not a happy sound, more like a predator hearing prey announce itself. Standard protocols won't work here, continued. The ships have overlapping defensive fields. They travel in a sphere formation with no weak points. Their sensor nets are redundant across the entire fleet. They've apparently studied our tactics at New Providence and adapted. So we adapt too, Sarah said quietly. Others nodded agreement. Exactly, which is why we're implementing something new, Operation Ghost Storm. The tactical display changed, showing the fleet from multiple angles. We're not going to hit them like we did one ship at a time working through the fleet. That won't work here. They'll identify the pattern and adjust. The display zoomed out, showing the entire volume of space between the fleet and Earth. Instead, we're going to use their formation against them. 300 ships means 300 targets. We've identified critical vulnerabilities in every class of warship. Reactor cores, jump drives, life support, weapon systems. Each of you will be assigned multiple targets. Sarah understood immediately. Simultaneous strike. All targets at once. Take out the entire fleet before they realize they're under attack. Precisely. We're deploying 150 ghost operators throughout the engagement zone. Each operator will hit 2 targets, separated by enough distance that they won't immediately connect them. We want them confused, scattered, unable to coordinate a response. What's our extraction plan? Someone asked. Same as always. Complete the mission, return to designated extraction points. Stealth ships will be waiting in predetermined locations. But understand this, they are not They're smarter, more experienced, more dangerous. Some of you might not make it back." Silence filled the room, not fearful silence, more like the quiet before a storm. "I'm not ordering anyone to go," said. "This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants out, no judgment, no consequences, just walk away now." Nobody moved. Sarah felt a fierce pride in her fellow operators. They knew the risks, knew they might die, went anyway because that was the job, that was what humans did. They protected their home, their species, their future. "All right then," said. "Detailed briefings begin in 1 hour, mission launch in 36 hours, questions." "Just one," an operator named Jackson said. "Do they know we're coming?" "They know about Ghost Protocol. They know we have special operations capabilities, but they think their formation and numbers will protect them," smiled grimly. "They're about to learn the difference between knowing something and understanding it." The briefings took 12 hours. Every operator received complete intelligence packages on their assigned targets. Ship schematics, crew complements, daily routines, security protocols, everything human intelligence had gathered about the over decades of careful observation. Sarah studied her targets obsessively. The first was a 6 kilometers long, carrying 300 fighter craft. The second was a mobile repair facility, essentially a factory ship that could manufacture parts and conduct major repairs while the fleet was in motion. Both were high-value targets, both would be heavily defended, both had to die. She checked her equipment one final time. The stealth suit, upgraded since New Providence with better adaptive camouflage and improved power systems. The rifle, a precision instrument capable of firing rounds that could phase through shield frequencies. Spare ammunition, emergency beacon, medical supplies. And the knife, always the knife. Some operators preferred high-tech solutions for everything. Sarah believed in having a backup that didn't require batteries or sophisticated targeting systems. Something simple, something reliable, something that would work when everything else failed. Launch time arrived. 150 stealth pods shot out from hidden locations throughout human space, each one carrying a single operator, each one following a precisely calculated trajectory that would place them in position for the strike. Sarah's pod flew through space on minimal power, its surfaces reflecting no radar, emitting no heat signature, essentially invisible to every sensor system that possessed. She spent the transit time in meditation, calming her mind, preparing for what was coming. Killing 4,000 warriors at New Providence had been necessary. It had also been haunting. She remembered every ship that exploded, every life that ended because she pulled a trigger. The therapist said what she was feeling was normal, that healthy people felt guilt when they killed, even when it was justified. She'd learned to carry it, to accept it, to understand that feeling guilty didn't mean stopping. It meant staying human even when doing inhuman things. The pod's computer chimed softly, target zone approaching. She sealed her helmet, checked her weapon, and waited for the deployment signal. Outside, invisible to everyone, 150 pods released their operators into the void. 150 hunters took up positions around a fleet that had no idea it was about to die. Sarah activated her thrusters, adjusting her trajectory toward the ship was enormous up close, its hull decorated with angular designs that probably had cultural significance to the. She wondered briefly about the beings inside. Did they have families, dreams, fears? Then she pushed those thoughts away. This wasn't about individuals. This was about species survival. They had come to destroy humanity, had come to kill every man, woman, and child on Earth and the colonies. They had made their choice. Now they would face the consequences. She reached the hull and attached magnetic clamps to her boots, walking across the surface until she found what she was looking for. An access port, right where the schematics said it would be. She attached a small device that would bypass the security systems, waited for the green light, and entered the ship. Inside was different than the ships had been, warmer, more organic-looking. There were a reptilian species and their ships reflected that. Curved corridors, humid atmosphere, dim lighting. Sarah moved through the ship like a shadow, her suit adapting to match the walls, the floors, the ambient light. She passed twice, close enough to touch them. Neither one noticed her. She reached the reactor core access corridor and set up her firing position. This was different than New Providence. She wasn't attacking from outside. She was inside the ship, which meant the blast would probably kill her if she didn't time the escape perfectly. But that was part of the plan. Hit the target from inside, maximize the damage, get out before the explosion. Simple in theory, difficult in practice. She checked her chronometer. 30 seconds until synchronized strike time. All across the fleet, 150 operators were doing exactly what she was doing. Finding their positions, preparing their weapons, waiting for the signal. 20 seconds. Sarah's hands were steady on her rifle. Years of training, years of practice. Muscle memory so ingrained she could do this in her sleep. 10 seconds. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea their lives were being saved right now, who would never know how close they'd come to extinction. 5 seconds. The mission wasn't about glory or recognition. It was about survival, about buying humanity more time to grow, to expand, to become something greater. 3 seconds. She thought about the crews, about the fact that they were following orders just like she was, about the tragedy that two species had to meet in violence rather than peace. 2 seconds. Then she stopped thinking and became what she'd been trained to be. 1. She pulled the trigger. The round passed through the reactor shielding like it didn't exist, impacted the exotic matter core, and initiated a cascading failure that would tear the ship apart in approximately 15 seconds. Sarah was already running. Behind her, alarms screamed. Emergency lighting activated. Bulkheads started to seal. She reached the access port in 9 seconds, cycled through in 2 more, and launched herself away from the hull with her thrusters at maximum burn. The exploded 6 seconds later. All around the fleet, ships were dying. Not 1 or 2, all of them. 300 reactors failing simultaneously, 300 explosions lighting up space like a new sun. The command structure, which had been confident and organized, descended into chaos. They had no idea what was happening, no idea how to respond, no idea that 150 human operators were already moving toward their second targets. Sarah reached the mobile repair facility. This one was easier, less security, more focused on internal work than external threats. She attached breaching charges to the primary reactor containment, set the timer, and was back in space before the facility knew she'd been there. The explosion added to the growing light show. She fired her thrusters, heading toward the extraction point. Around her, space was filled with debris, bodies, and the aftermath of the most devastating military strike in human history. 300 ships. Approximately 1 million crew members. All eliminated in under 20 minutes. Sarah felt sick. This was worse than New Providence. This was industrial-scale killing. This was genocide. But it had been necessary. They had come for Earth. They had come to end humanity. They had given no warning, offered no terms, shown no mercy. So humanity had shown them what happened when you threatened the of the galaxy's most efficient hunters. The extraction went smoothly. 147 operators reached their rendezvous points. 3 had died in the attack, caught in explosions before they could escape. Their bodies were recovered later, their names added to a classified memorial that only other operators would ever see. Sarah returned to New Providence and tried to resume her normal life, teaching marksmanship, gardening in her spare time, pretending she was a normal person who hadn't just participated in killing a million beings. The nightmares came anyway. Admiral sent a message 2 weeks later. Just 2 sentences. Because of you and your colleagues, Earth survives, humanity thrives, thank you. It helped a little. The galaxy's response to the engagement was swift and unanimous. 23 species contacted humanity within days, requesting diplomatic relations and non-aggression pacts. The Galactic Council, which had been debating whether to even acknowledge humanity's existence, sent an official invitation to join. Humanity politely declined. They weren't interested in galactic politics. They just wanted to be left alone to build their civilization in peace. But now everyone understood. Humanity wasn't expanding aggressively through the galaxy because they didn't need to. They weren't building massive fleets because they didn't need to. They had something more effective than numbers or firepower. They had ghosts, silent hunters who could eliminate any threat before that threat knew it existed. The galaxy learned to give humanity space, to respect their boundaries, to think very carefully before doing anything that might be construed as hostile. Because if you threatened humanity, you wouldn't face an army or a fleet. You'd face something far worse. You'd face the silent hunters, and by the time you realized they were there, it would already be too late. Sarah stood on a hill overlooking New Providence's main settlement as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She thought about the commander who had figured it out in his final moments, who had understood what humanity represented. Patience, precision, efficiency. The ability to kill without being seen, to strike without warning, to end threats before they could fully develop. Humans had brought their hunting instincts to the stars, had refined them with technology and training until they'd become the apex predators of the galaxy. Not because they wanted to be, because they had to be. Because the universe was full of dangers, and someone had to protect the vulnerable, the innocent, the species just trying to survive. Sarah pulled out her rifle and began the nightly ritual of cleaning and maintenance, the weapon that had taken so many lives, the weapon that had saved so many more. She thought about the crews, about the warriors, about every being who had died because they chose to threaten humanity. She remembered them, all of them, because that was what separated hunters from predators. Hunters remembered their prey, honored it, understood the weight of what they'd done. And tomorrow she would wake up and teach another marksmanship class, would help colonists learn to protect themselves, would live a quiet, normal life. Until the next threat emerged. Until humanity needed its ghosts again. Until the silent hunters went to war one more time. Because that was the price of being human in a dangerous galaxy. That was the burden of being Earth's children. That was what it meant to be a silent hunter. The sun set completely, and darkness covered New Providence. In the shadows, Sarah smiled slightly. Darkness was where hunters belonged. And humanity had made the darkness their home. They were dangerous because they thought differently, because they planned obsessively, because they treated every interaction as a potential threat and prepared accordingly. The silent hunters weren't just good at killing. They were good at everything that made killing unnecessary. And humans never stopped hunting. And the Empire had to change with it or go extinct. But they were the best hunters the universe had ever seen. And now everyone knew it.